So, thank you for coming. You guys at the back all right then? You got your snacks, got your drink on, living your best lives? Perfect. So in 2007, I went down to Kingsmead, the home of cricket in KZN. And I won a fancy dress competition. Dressed up like Borat, ran around the field. There may have been a few beverages from the castle corner, may or may not. And I won a fancy dress competition to go to the UK to watch South Africa play England at the home of cricket, Lords. So the home of cricket is just not the home of fancy dress, so you're not allowed to dress ridiculously. You have to dress very fancy, you have to wear your collar and tie, and you have to talk like with this accent if you go to Lords. So I won the competition, and when I moved to London, I needed to get a job, and for me it was one of those things where you've got to hustle, you've got to go out on the interviews. I went for about 13 first round interviews, and in the meantime, while I was trying to get a job, I had some part-time hustle to keep the money flowing and the rent at bay. And one of my jobs was actually doing hog roasts, spit roasts, lamb roasts. I would go, and there was this Afrikaans company in Reading called Inyama Caterers. And Inyama had a giant sheep on the side of the van, and you could go to Inyama and Soiti, come here, this is the machine. Okay, take the machine, take the van, here's your GPS, here's your coordinates, and you're going to go and make hog roasts for these British people. Then we'd go there, and then you'd have to be entered into the staff entrance. You know, there you really feel humbled in the UK when you're having to be a staff member and use the back entrance because you're not allowed to walk through the door that everyone else does because you smell like a pig because you've been driving this machine through little streets of the UK. Okay, this is starting to, it's all jumping out, isn't it? Okay, you guys have to come closer. I'm going to talk about this. Yeah? Okay, everybody come closer. You need to come a lot closer because I'm going to have to use my outside voice. And I'm going to have to take my jacket off because I'm probably going to start having to sweat a bit. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I started doing some spit roasts in London, not the sexual kind, like the actual make money kind. And while I was doing all of this, it's a bit of an analogy for while you are trying to find your destiny in the entrepreneurship space and you're trying to do something to keep the cash flow ticking over. Because we know the number one cause of startup death is cash flow, okay? That's why businesses fail. And we all know the problem. All the people in the room who are entrepreneurs or who have your own business, please put up your hand. Okay, most of you. So we all know what the problem is and why businesses fail. Okay, majority is cash flow. So why do they fail if we know the problem? So that seems like a seemingly obvious thing. But the challenges with cash flow is that there's so many different things at bay. We don't get to control all of those things in the ecosystem. So debtors, there can be a huge problem. We've heard horrific stories about doing work for the SABC. You might never get paid within 365 days. Okay? Especially if cloud is still at the helm. But the important thing is, what are you doing in order to make sure that the cash flow continues to keep ticking over? There's never a right time to start a business. So when did you start your thing? When did you go and actually make it happen? It isn't a time of the year when it's a good time to start anything. Like you just get a feeling in your gut, or you get tired of working for someone and you walk out and you take your box with you and maybe the goldfish and maybe Renee if it's a Jerry Maguire rom-com. But ultimately, cash flow is the number one reason why businesses fail, right? So at the time I wasn't ready to start my business. My view had always been very traditional on the whole process. I was fortunate enough to go to university. I then started working for someone else. And for me, working for someone else is a really important lesson because you get to make the mistakes of other people's budget. You know, and that's not even being like malicious. It's not like a VBS scandal where you wasted someone else's money or money of the like. You made a mistake and then it didn't impact you because you still got your check at the end of the month and you still did your thing. So effectively, when you're starting something, there's never a right time. But it's really important to realize that you have to do something to keep some form of cash coming in. Sometimes you'll have to take on jobs that you don't want, or sometimes you'll have to sell yourself a little bit cheaper to take on a project so that you can still manage keeping all of those expenses, paying your tax where you have to, and being a good entrepreneurship citizen. Okay?
And for me, having worked all these side jobs and this side hustle stuff, eventually I landed my first job in London. And London in 2008 was a really interesting space because people were talking left, right and center about this social network called Twitter. Clients were really interested in how they could use Facebook and how they could leverage it in their marketing campaigns. I had a traditional PR and comms background and I wanted to be an actor, so that was my thing. And for me, I was really obsessed by the fact that you could use a feature phone while sitting on the tube and you could read people's thoughts from celebrities and journalists. And even sitting in an underground in London, I was starting to follow what early adopter journalists were saying from South Africa. And they were everything from tweeting your pictures of lunch and what you were wearing this fine days. Twitter in 2008 was very friendly. It was a lot less aggressive than it is now. Yeah. It's a very angry place. Yeah, very, very angry. And we've pretty much seen the worst breed of humanity come out on Twitter in the last few years. And I'm embarrassed to be white because of the people on Twitter. And for me, what was really interesting was how so many brands were starting to wake up and say, like, how can social incorporate into a strategy? How can social become tactical as part of your journey? And for me, I'm obsessive about certain things. The one thing is storytelling. That's the thing that I'm obsessed about. And as an entrepreneur, if you can find the thing that you're obsessive about, what is the thing that's going to keep you awake at night? The thing that's going to keep you waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning? Have you standing in the shower? Like, what are the problems that you're solving, either for yourself, your community, or just someone out there that you feel that this is the thing that's going to change people's lives? Like, for me, I like to entertain and I like to tell a good story. So that's how I kind of built a business, out of taking brands and turning them into comedic or serious narratives. Okay? So carrying on working in London, I was writing a blog at the time for me and my mate and the adventures that we were having, and we had a few friends at home that were reading it and sharing it and whatever. And for me, the analytics part of the website was the most fascinating thing. It was a really rubbish Joomla site at the time. There wasn't a lot of WordPress around, so I was cobbling together some code and uploading some pictures, and just seeing that there were hundreds of eyeballs on this page reading about my shenanigans, and there were different demographics and there were different regions and different locations. It was a fascinating thing that there were strangers out there reading that content. And for me, when I got to about 2009, I saw the developments with CCOM and how there was going to be this real revolution in South Africa from a broadband access. Sure, data's still very high and still too high in 2018, but at that time we could see that there was going to be an explosion, that something was like it was happening. There was going to be a tipping point in terms of social media and what could come off the back of that. So in 2009, I sat in a Starbucks and I started scribbling some logos and drawing on napkins in terms of this vision of this thing that I wanted to create. And even today, I talk about the holy trinity of marketing. So regardless of the business that you run, regardless of the space that you play in, the holy trinity of marketing, it talks to these three parts of a triangle. It's digital, because obviously we have social and we have ways to communicate a lot better now. It's not just about one-to-one communication like we would in the past, it's one-to-many instantaneously. And off the back of that communication, you've got digital, but then the more digital savvy we become, the more we actually crave human interaction. I mean, most of you could watch the highlights package in a couple days' time, you could watch the stream of this, all those kinds of things. But there's a reason why you're here, because it's a different experience being here in person. There's a different, like, having me sweat on you is a real thing. Don't be one of those ladies that captures my DNA and that does something with it. So that's what I'm worried about. That if one day, in 18 years' time, someone is going to have to come to me and tell me that they're my child because someone has captured my DNA in the front of me. This is real life. This stuff happens. So anyway, so you've got digital. The more digital savvy we become, the more we crave human interaction. So you have to have an activation component. So this evening, this is our activation, talking and spreading stories and sharing and engaging with one another. And when you put those two together, the final thing is PR. Because you have to create that talkability. So digital, activation, and PR. That's the holy trinity of marketing. And those are the things that we use in our everyday execution of our agency till this very day. Okay? So sitting, drawing, doing some logos. And for me, what was irritating with me at the time was the fact that So many digital agencies were popping up, left, right, and center. They were popping up because they were using jargon to confuse clients. They were saying big words, and they were saying tech things, and they were saying words like analytics, and algorithm to confuse people. And like that's what happens today still. Oh, why is our Instagram not performing so well? The algorithms, they changed the algorithms. When in doubt in digital area, you've used that. You haven't used it.
I know what you're talking about.
When in doubt, blame the algorithms. So, put those three things together, drawing on the napkin, and for me, I was getting frustrated because so many of these agencies were popping up, and they didn't necessarily know much about communication, but they just knew jargon, and they knew words. And they were confusing clients into spending millions of rands with them, and they weren't actually providing any value. So my thing was, I studied a marketing degree, I understood the communication side of things at a traditional level, comms theory, all these fancy terms from what makes human being word of mouth spread, and that for me was the retro side of communication. And when you put that together with remarkable content and working with influencers and online engaged audiences, this was before online influencers were an actual title, or that was influencer marketing was even a job. And putting those two things together, when you put the retro comms together with all of this amazing side of the internet, that's when you create a retroviral opportunity. And that's where the name came from. And it also sticks because people hear retroviral and they think I sell AIDS drugs. Yeah, so every time I've had an interview, Ashraf Garda, every time I've had an interview with SAFM, Michael, I always remember you as a guest, Ashraf, because of the AIDS drugs. And then, it sticks. Every now and again we get a strange tender request. The other day we got a tender request for air conditioners. So I don't know what happened there. But anyway, so fast forward to 2010, came back to South Africa, it was Zamina Mina, waka waka, For those of you who aren't too young and you dance like that. 2010, and then September of 2010, went to Burg Day, there's a vibe, had the concert, and then I came home, and I was with a friend of mine, not Miss Exclusive Party. Yeah. I led her into the house. As I turned to close the door, these 4 armed robbers jumped out of nowhere and then attacked me and beat me up and tied me up with my shoelaces, and they were in the house with us. They tied her up with aprons, and the one dude sat on her while the rest of the guys went into the rest of the home. And it was frightening, I make light of it, but white people have this fear of being armed robbed. This is, I don't know if black people can identify with this, but white people, when we get armed robbed in a house invasion, we have all these very fearful stories of these people are going to go and get an iron and burn me in the face. That's the number one white fear when you get armed robbed. I don't know if black people have the same thing, but that is our number one fear. Why the F would a robber go and take the time to put water in the iron, heat the iron, and come and burn your face? Surely there's more important things to do, rob the house. Anyway, so just sat on her for an hour and a half, and it was a really, really scary, frightening experience. I make light of it now, but terrifying. And fortunately, they didn't hurt us, and then they left, and then the whole thing was over. And for me, I had a lot of people say, why don't you go back to London? Why don't you leave South Africa? And for me, the answer was quite simple. It's we've got such an amazing country. Yes, it's a little bit messed up at times, and there's a whole host of stuff that happens, but I'm not going to let 4 evil people change my perspective on a place that I love, And I came back here specifically for a reason, and there's so much opportunity. Even now, today, today's current climate is quite hectic, and there's a lot of fear, and people don't know, and there's uncertainty, and the whole thing around South Africa right now is what happens next? Because we're at a very serious crossroads in terms of our history and politically, what happens next. And for me it is, it's even now people are oh my God, we need to immigrate, the Australian papers and the those are the things that are happening. But for me as an entrepreneur and someone who's been running a business now for 8 years, there's more and more opportunity for entrepreneurs, for people that have hustle, for people that want to dig their heels into the sand and make a change. And for me, I think that the sad thing is that a lot of the time we just expect government to make a difference, or we expect government to implement programs that are going to change lives. But ultimately, we have the power in our own hands to change lives, and the only way that we can make an impact in this country and around the world is to create jobs. So if you're creating a business, there's never a right time, there's never a right place, there's never a right way to go about it. But you know, for me, I have a saying, I never want to be the biggest, I want to be the best. Okay? So we're a small agency, there's only 12 of us, but that's 12 people that have jobs. And if each of those people end up spreading the gospel and they go their separate ways, then there's a potential for 12 new businesses to be started to employ another 12 people. That's 144 jobs. And if you extrapolate that out to 1 million people creating jobs for 10 people, that's 11 million jobs that have been created. And for me, it's a very simple form of maths. And in the entrepreneurial space, there's a hell of a lot of people wanting to help each other out and like scratch your back, share with you. This event is a perfect example. It's a platform to showcase people that aren't famous yet for business. They haven't grown the biggest empire, but so many people that are in this room today, they're going to go on to do great things. And in so many instances, a lot of that will be failure, a lot of it will lead to hard times. But at the end of the day, there's so many good opportunities from just going out and trying your thing. Yeah. For me, I'm not a fan of business plans because I don't think that you have an idea of how your business is going to work for customers before you've had any customers. For me, I had an idea, I went out there and I started networking with people that I knew that this would be a relevant solution to. Our business was so hyper-focused when we launched that all we did was we took online influencers, bloggers, people that were big on Twitter, and we connected them with brand campaigns that were relevant, and they became the launch pad to talk about our brands and services that we worked with. So in 2010, I started telling people, I wrote a blog about my experience, and I got a few, like 1,000 people that read that post. And when I went out, I had people say to me, dude, are you alright? I can't believe that you got armed robbed. So grateful that you're okay. So glad that you don't want to leave country. Glad you didn't become a racist overnight. You know, all these kinds of things. So for me, that started showing the power of the internet, right? That people are listening, people are watching, people are engaging, people are learning things from this platform where there's freedom of sharing and freedom of knowledge. And a few days later, I won an iPhone on an AfriHost Twitter competition. So, you know, like the internet came to the rescue again, that's a vibe. Yeah. And then a few days later, my car got stolen. And I was sitting inside the office, you know, just like on my keyboard, just got my insurance company replaced my computer, had this shiny new iPhone that I won on the internet. And then my car got stolen, and Nikki walks into the office and she's like, dude, where's your car? And I'm like, that's not funny. And most of you aren't old enough to know the movie Dude, Where's My Car? But the conversation went, dude, where's your car? Don't say that's not funny. No, dude, where's your car? Dude, where's my car? And then, you know, like, if anyone's ever had a car stolen, there's this thing that you go through where you walk outside, you park the car right here, the car was dead, but you look at it, like, I'm pretty sure I'm not there, but maybe I had like an aneurysm and parked 3 blocks away, so I'm gonna walk there. And then you're gonna be like, I didn't park there. You're like, of course you didn't, because your car's been stolen. It was here. Yeah. Anyway, so the car got stolen, right? Then, what happened after that? Then a few weeks later, Minnie contacted me because a friend of mine was working in the PR agency. She said to me, listen, I saw you were going to go on this road trip to go and watch cricket in fancy dress because that's your kind of mecca. We're going to sponsor your car for 6 weeks. Drive this new Mini Countryman, drive to Pretoria, drive to Durban, drive to Cape Town and go watch all the cricket. And then I was like, cool, I'm in a fancy dress when I go to the cricket. And then I also got them to put a hashtag on the car because I said, I'm thinking with a marketing brain, stick a hashtag on there and then people see the car driving around because it's brand new, it looks very different. It was the first time they had those big minis and that people like my size can fit in. And I said, let's track the conversation around what people are saying around the car. And that was amazing because by using a tool for listening and like online values, I could show Minnie that there were more than 1,000 tweets about me and my fancy ass car. Wow. So they're already starting to think and show brands how the value, what the value is in conversation in the online space. Then I went on the fancy dress mission. I wasn't successful at Supersport Park. I wasn't successful at Kingsmead. I dressed up like a giant Lego man and it was like, oh, I'm a giant Lego man. And people were like, nah, that's not exciting enough. So then I got to Cape Town, and a friend of mine, she's quite artistic, so then I wore these yellow spandex, and then she body painted the rest of me. She painted the castle logo on me, and she painted this like brown, it looked like a beer on me, and then this part she painted white, so it looked like the head of the beer, and then when I stood like this, I looked like a giant draft. Then when you're going to enter a castle competition, you've got to add one item to look ultra patriotic, so then I added an SA flag behind my, so like an SA flag came, so I was like a super draft man. And I won tickets to go to India, to watch South Africa play India in Nagpur. And then, a few weeks later, I dressed up in this little Speedo for this testicular cancer awareness campaign for Hollard at the time, or Zitana, now it's Hollard in the purple Speedos. If you guys have ever seen the Jacarandas in the purple Speedos, it comes at the same time of year. Didn't mean to use that as a pun. You just got it. Thank you. 4 weeks of the great audience member. And then I won tickets to Vegas for me and 2 mates. Of that competition, like by creating interest and conversation and word of mouth spread about testicular cancer awareness. And everything that was rad about my year in 2010 was because of the internet. And that for me, like, it kind of ticked all these boxes in terms of what I was doing and working with the internet, that there was definitely something there, that there was like this recipe for virality and doing interesting, remarkable pieces of content online and on the internet. And a few weeks after that, we pitched to Nando's, and we became Nando's first digital agency as 2 people pitched an idea. Julius Malema made a tweet about closing down the Twitter, and Nando's became famous for those posters. We all expect Nando's to release the posters online now, but it never happened before. They used to pay full-page spreads for newspaper advertising or to put things in like traditional media spaces. We were the first agency to say to Nando's, stop wasting money on spending a full page in the City Press or in the Sowetan or in the Sunday Times. Let's seed your content via influencers. And on that Friday afternoon, we got 7,000 views on my blog alone, and we got hundreds of thousands of views through the other channels that we seeded it on. And that for me was like, that was a huge moment. We could go back to Nando's and say, look what we did for you. And then a few weeks later, we were busy rolling out their first seeding of their video campaign. So we took a Cell C spoof campaign, and it got 100,000 views on YouTube in 6 days. And we were like high-fiving and smacking each other on the bums because it was such a yeah. And 1 year later, we took 3 Robert Mugabe lookalikes, and even the Mugabe that was in the TV commercial, and we took these 3 Mugabes to 50 online influencers across the country. And then one day, the Mugabes delivered all these like very important notes and one link to a campaign that we created called Meal for 6. So the ad agency created the Mugabe TV commercial. We had a Meal for 6 digital campaign, and our thing was share the names of 5 people, living or dead, celebrities or friends, that you would share your Nando's 6-pack meal with. And then you got everything from tweets of celebrities, of well-known individuals. And on that same day, Robert Mugabe made a comment about gays in the UK. His homophobia led to one of our most successful campaigns. Because people started tagging Stephen Fry, because he's gay, in their tweets saying, oh my God, have you seen this? Stephen Fry, Stephen Fry. And he's like, well, that's an interesting way to sell chicken. 2 million views in 6 days without a cent spent on media. 20% increase in sales year on year. The most successful campaign at the time that Nando's had ever experienced in its 25-year history. So that kind of laid the foundation for me and my personal brand and the crazy stuff that I was getting up to take that thinking in how you disseminate content and information in the online space. And that's what started us on this amazing journey. We won a bronze at Cannes a few months later, which for those of you who aren't in advertising, like a big deal in the world of advertising. And in that first project, we really proved ourselves. It allowed us to set this launch pad of opportunity. And since then, we've made a campaign go globally viral at least once a year for the last 8 years consecutively. And that's really I haven't used a single slide. I'm very proud of that. Or a swear word, yes. It's a very yeah, there's a lot of sponsors here. You don't want to alienate the sponsors. Anyway, so that was the start of something very special, and that validated a lot of the stuff that we actually wanted to do and the way in which we wanted to create content. So for me, I'm going to go to slides later just around like some key outtakes around entrepreneurship and the stuff that I've experienced. But a year ago, I actually launched a book. So that's why one of these is today's giveaway. So it's called The Best Dick. Okay? It's not about penises or porn. I didn't have to sell my body ever. But for me, like, there are a lot of dicks in business. There are a lot of dicks in digital. And like I said at the start of this talk, I don't want to be the biggest dick, I want to be the best dick. and that for me is like the lesson for all entrepreneurs, or all aspiring entrepreneurs. Because size is all about ego. Fortunately, I'm tall, so I don't have any size. No, there was no shade, And ultimately, like, what is your best? What is your thing that you're trying to achieve? Because, like I said, when we started out, we were very much a single-minded focus, a very niche. Like, we plugged into other ad agencies, we plugged into brands, and all we did was we stuck in our lane and we just did our thing remarkably and exceptionally. We took content and we seeded it out there, and we got people talking and talking and talking. But then, obviously, as channels evolve and as social media evolves, paid media became a thing that everyone can do. Nowadays, we take it for granted. You can post an image to Facebook and you can boost it. When we started, there wasn't a boosting function for brands or agencies. There was only a select, very cream of the crop, large agencies who were spending millions of rands a month. You know, obviously in a league that was very different from where we were. They were the only ones that were able to speak to a Facebook rep, to actually run ads and to target people. So we had to do things in a very disruptive, in a very different way. And, you know, that's the important thing, is that, like, my job didn't exist when I was at university. And so many of your jobs probably didn't exist either. That's why you created them, or that's why you disrupted in that space. And for me, from my side of things, our world continues to evolve every day. Like, we always have to read stuff, we have to engage with stuff. And like I said at the start of the talk, I'm obsessed with storytelling. So I watch a hell of a lot of YouTube videos, and I watch a hell of a lot of engaging content. And for me, marketing and stand-up comedy are actually cousins, they're related. Because if you look at you guys in this audience today, it's like a stand-up comedy venue. Like, there's different genders, there's different ages, different races, there's different creeds and cultures. And ultimately, when you're talking to an audience of people, this is what you're talking to as your customers. Especially if you're in like finance, or if you're in like telco. Like, these are the faces and the eyeballs of the people that are engaging with you on social media. These are the people that are calling your call center. These are the people that are queuing for your products or services. And ultimately, tapping into such a diverse audience of people, it's a very exciting thing. But you have to be able to develop key insights and premises, and that's how you market to people. And that's exactly how you make jokes and make funnies when you're doing stand-up comedy. So I lived in Hollywood for 6 months in a previous life. And I'm going to just use the mic as a prop, because what kind of stand-up comedian would I be if I didn't have a mic?
Hello? That's very scary and hectic. Okay, I'm going to stand back here. Okay. So when I did stand-up comedy in Hollywood, the first thing that I would obviously relate to was Stan. When I did stand-up comedy in Hollywood, the first thing that I would actually talk about was my accent, because that was the obvious differentiator for an audience of Americans. So I'd be like, hi, my name is Mike, and I'm from South Africa, and that's why I have this weird accent. What's weird about accents? Is chicks love accents. You can be Shrek. If you're packing an accent, you're getting some ass. That'll do, don't care, that'll do. Then I started talking about rappers. I love rap, man. It's like I'm not good at it. It's like I'm not like an Eminem in disguise or something. I just love rap. And what's scary about rappers is our rappers have those deep, husky rapper voices. So it's like, what would I do without you? I would think about you. I know you're tired of being lonely. Baby girl, put it on, man. Anytime I have that voice is when I have the flu. It's like, ooh, the tripping in my throat is post-nasal. Bitch, make me soup and sprinkle some basil. So, it's a very ridiculous gimmick, but the whole point of that is around, I don't know why I'm holding this. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I entertain you.
So the point around that is that whether you like rap, whether you have an accent or you don't, the fact is that you can identify with the truths that exist within those premises, that exist within those concepts. And for us, when we start any kind of brainstorm, if we start any kind of strategic thinking around coming up with ideas for brands or for the businesses that we work with, we always go back to a place of a key insight, a key truth, and a premise. Because ultimately it's that truth that's going to get people to emotionally connect with your brand. And it's those things that are going to get people excited. What does your business do? You empower young females, exclusively in Gauteng.
Yep.
Don't empower the woman anywhere else. Those KZN women, we're not empowering them. We're empowering these Gauteng women, we're empowering them.
For now.
Exclusively.
For now.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
Because it's your focus and it's your niche.
Yeah.
And then we'll go to KZN and then we'll eventually end up in Limpopo. Those ladies need empowerment, let me tell you. No, he's running away, sorry sir. He's off to find his Limpopo lover.
I think he's a comedian. He's amazing.
We've got some slides. We have an elevator pitch, and this is the thing that we tell people about what we do. Okay? So for me, the elevator pitch is the most important part of your intro and breaking the ice, because this is the thing that's going to set you apart from everyone else. And we have had our elevator pitch session here early this evening, and those things were great. There's so many opportunities we had to sit up and be like, that's super interesting. I mean, I could definitely use a spa break right now. I want to go to the spa right now, ma'am. Talking to you. Here we go. Are you helping someone book a spa trip right now?
Yes.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Good. Because I want to go to the spa.
I'm teaching about you as well.
Oh, fantastic. Please, only the good things.
I'm killing it.
Yeah, because I don't want Black Twitter to come after me. CSI Black Twitter, I'm very scared of that.
CSI.
And in this climate, I'm scared of anything that you're going to tweet. So please do not take any of my comments out of context.
You're just killing it tonight.
I love South Africa. I hate the beach. I only go to rivers. Rivers and dams. I never go to the beach. I hate the beach. This is how we pitch. This is how we pitch Retro Viral. Retro Viral has made more brands go viral globally than any other agency in South Africa, and possibly even Africa. From Nando's to Dow Egberts, and most recently Rockamongers with the election burger campaign. These are examples of our unique breed of creative thinking and execution that encourages people to talk about, share, and ultimately buy the brands we represent. Because for us, virality is only as important as one, the eyeballs that have seen your content, and two, if you've actually made an impact and led to some form of sales conversion. So if you're a car brand and you've had 1,000 views of your car brand, a car commercial, and you get 100 new sales of that car, that is a very successful campaign. That is virality for me. So when I say viral, I take it very seriously. It has to have some kind of business objective associated with it. So it's not just wishy-washy awareness. Because anybody can get awareness, anybody can get eyeballs if you're going to spend the money for it. But real virality is about that emotional connection that can convert people to actually wanting to be purchasers. Okay? So our business is built on 4 key pillars. Strategy is the most important thing because we want to get into the headspace of our customers and our audience. You've got to understand headspace first before you can develop the content, before you can disseminate that content, and before you can finally report on the success of that campaign. And reporting is incredibly important. In all the businesses that you guys have started in this room, it's incredibly important to understand how can you monitor and how can you track what your campaign or what your product or your service has done. Because the more you can do that, the more you can show, the more metrics you can go into about the value that you're adding to your client, the greater the chance of you staying on board, the greater the chance of you getting repeat business, and the greater the chance of you converting that project work into annuity income. Because that's ultimately what all of us is trying to do. We're trying to create reasons for annuity income so that we can go and sit on our yacht in a river. Setting up a vision, like everyone's obsessed with this, like what's your why, what's your purpose?
Yeah.
Like it's become such a buzzword, but what is your actual thing? Like what is your vision? Like what can you see that you want to be the best at? What is your thing that you want to grow into? And for us, it's very basic. We want to be the best digital story selling agency in Africa. So making stories that lead to sales. Because if we can tell stories that people get so emotionally connected with, and that we can create goosebumps for our audience between our brand, that's when those two things start making love together, and the best love of all is the sales. Because the brand makes more sales, their marketing budget grows, so does our bottom line. Amen, brothers and sisters.
Amen.
I got a little bit excited there. Okay. So I'm going to play the Rockamama's Burger campaign case study for you. For those of you, some of you may have seen it, some of you haven't. But let's go.
Don't wanna be an American idiot. Don't wanna listen to the new media. And get you with the sound of the stereo.
Trump is potentially just 4 swing states away from feasting at the White House, and a local South African restaurant is getting in on the act.
Rockamama's is taking advantage of the American elections, their new burger campaign.
We've got a Rockamama's up the road from us here, and it's got to be one of the best hamburgers.
So who said hamburgers and politics don't mix?
You're not telling me you have breakfast and lunch at Rockamama's. You've got Rocco. The US election is a bit of a job.
Who's tastier, Hillary or Trump? The Donald or the Hilton?
A new burger brand on the block, Rockamama's, is allowing its consumers to vote.
In a social media campaign that has taken flight, you can vote for your favorite burger. You can vote for the Donald, a super cheesy, double the bull, and no guacamole or anything sounding Mexican burger. A liberally garnished beef, chicken, and bacon burger. If you can't stomach this year's US presidential election candidates, at least you can always have a burger in your own backyard. Now that is food for thought.
Wow.
So if you saw how we created that, we didn't spend a lot of money. Like all we did was we took 3 burgers, we designed a beautiful image of what they had as the ingredients, and we had some clever copywriting. Then, as a way to launch this to the public, we had an event. And for me, today's events have become like going to the opening of an envelope. So many influencers get invited, they had this event today, they had this competitor the next day. There's never really a true connection. I'm a huge advocate of influencer marketing, but to really tap into influencers that have an impact on your business. So for me, what we did was, we recently won the account, having pitched against 3 of the biggest agencies in the country. So this was like a huge moment for us back in 2016. And then we went and looked at all the data from the past 12 months using tools that Rockamama's had been using and had implemented. We went and looked at 12 months worth of data and said, who are the most relevant online influencers that are talking about this brand, that aren't being paid to tweet, they aren't being paid to say nice things, and they've had the best experiences. And then what we did was we just pulled out a list of celebrities and DJs and sports people and entertainers, and we reached out to them and we invited them to come to the launch of the election burger for them to taste one of those 3 burgers for the first time. And then what they got to do is they had the full-on experience as if they were a customer, they got their little badge that came with the burger, and then they had the table talker encouraging them to vote with their thumbs. And then we had real time pulling in the data of who was ordering what, who was voting for which burger, and that ticked over in our own little poll of the different burgers. And it was an incredible opportunity for us to kick off the very impactful conversation. That night on Twitter, it was the #1 trending topic above something that Trevor Noah had done, and there was a Kaiser Chiefs match at the same time. So we managed to take those 50 invites to an event, and we were able to make enough conversation, enough noise around what this burger was all about. And that for me is really important when you launch something, is how do you get people talking about it? How do you get them wanting to tweet about it? How do you get them wanting to say that this is the most amazing event in Joburg for the whole night? You know what I mean? Like, those are important things that we think about. It's never just about the content, it's about the way that that content is getting out there. So a very small budget with huge impact. The next example is a lot bigger budget, and I get these weird briefs now. We managed to build up a reputation for ourselves where I will get WhatsApp briefs like, hey dude, the new Survivor's starting and I need a cool idea. Yeah, can you come back to me tomorrow? Because we're presenting it to Exco, and like it's got to drive like huge amounts of entries for. So we don't need boring people on Survivor. We need the best people. So what can we do? And so I said I might have something for you. So then the team went and we brainstormed and we did our whole thing, and then we made this.
In 2017, reality TV was ubiquitous. But there is one show credited with the explosion of this format across the globe. Welcome to Survivor! After taking a 5-year hiatus from South African cable TV, how do you generate interest for a show that is competing in a cluttered landscape, both on TV and via social media? You combine the best of traditional media reach with the addictive offering of real-time live social media.
What's happening on the corner of Stanton Drive and William Nicol? It's big, it's like...
It's massive.
Right? So people are living there for 3 days.
So cool. On the billboard,
And you can watch them all vying for one spot inside the actual Mnet show.
You can watch it on facebook.com/Survivor SA. It's live streaming right now.
Every nuance was recreated until 3 contestants remained. Those voted out returned as the jury to decide on the victor. The winner of the wildcard slot in Survivor SA is... Stay tuned as the island drama unfolds. Facebook.com/Survivor SA.
So obviously a bigger budget, not that big because I had to do the voiceover on the case study video. Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. We got to eat worms, we got to put people up on a billboard. Sorry man, it was a vibe. You had to eat. I mean, if you're going to do the thing, you must participate. If you're going to make the contest eat a worm, you've got to eat a worm. That's real hustle.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to eat a worm. Yeah. So I don't have a lot of time left, so I'm going to just jump ahead. I'm going to show you this one. Okay. This for me is a very interesting one because it all talks about network. So I had a contact in the UK connect me with some Germans, and they were like, speak to Retroviral because they are the best at making stuff go viral in the world. Didn't make that up. That's how they introduced us. I was like, dude, that's a great intro with a little bit of pressure. So yeah, it's a little bit Salt Bay. And we had to come up with an idea for a savings platform called Raisin. So what it is, it's a European product, and if you go on from your computer in a European market, then what it'll do is it'll detect your IP address and where you're coming from. So if you're logging in from Spain, it'll recommend Portuguese banks that can give you a better interest rate. So it's continuously trying to get you to invest so that you can get the best interest rate, not just in your market, but in your surrounding markets. And they needed a way to communicate this to customers. So what we did was we went back to that whole thing about what's the premise, what's the key insight. And savings is a difficult thing. Like, how many of us have the ability to save? Not many, because like 98% of South Africans are in debt. So saving is not really a reality for a lot of people. And even in Europe, there's a lot of problems with employment rates and all that kind of stuff. So having to talk to a very like 1% kind of audience, how are you going to encourage more savings, and especially in a fintech platform, if you're talking to an older audience. So what we said was, the key insight for us was that when you dip your hand into your pocket and you pull out a note, whether you've been traveling or you find a 10 rand, like it always feels special. Like it's almost like you won a prize. Like it was a winner Wednesday that you pulled out a crumpled note. And that crumpled note, it's nothing by itself, but when you actually fold it and think about it, it can take you to different dreams and different places. And for me, the art of a crumpled note is within origami. And that for me is like the ability to tell a story when you think about that money, it's a collection of thoughts, a collection of stories, a collection of information. We pitched this idea that we wanted to do origami in London, and then Brexit happened and we had to make London not look like London, which was kind of interesting. I mean, we could have shot it at Bank City with all the cobblestones in town, and we could have made that look like Europe. But we found a space where we could engage with English-speaking Europeans, and we told the story using only South African crew. So we pitched this idea via Skype from SA, and we got 8 of us from South Africa to go and make this idea in London. Oh, sorry, my bad. Let's try it again.
There's a Japanese legend that promises a wish from the gods to anyone who folds 1,000 origami cranes. Some stories even suggest that eternal good luck will be granted to the individual who folds those cranes. There's something magical about discovering a crisp, crumpled banknote in your back pocket. The possibilities of what can be achieved with that currency. It's greater than just ones and zeros, or existing from this month's paycheck to the next. We're all saving for something. A home, travel, education, all of the above, or none of the above. So, are you saving for anything?
Yes, we are. Actually, we are.
Small, maybe Italian car? Horse.
I'd love a horse. Yeah. I'd like to buy a place in Italy, so a house, because I'm from Italy.
Not enough money is put into the preservation of animals in the wild.
If I save money, it's for going on vacation. We just saved lots of money to come here. We'd probably do the same again.
Okay, cool. Can you give me 1 second?
Okay. Okay.
It's a little origami car, yeah. Looking nice. There you go.
Oh, he's wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. It's great. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. An origami rhino, folded today. It's fresh.
Oh, wow.
What if there was a savings product that offered more than just empty, glossy corporate promises? Something that enabled you to actually save. Raisin.com. Raise your interest with Europe's #1 deposit marketplace with the best interest rate.